When I was a preteen, I went to one of my friend's sleepovers. It was usually the same group of girls, but this was a birthday, so there were a few other friends that we usually didn't hang out with. Plus, there was another girl who was the cousin of the birthday girl. For the sake of the story, we'll call the birthday girl Kara. All in all, it was a pretty fun time. The parents took us to a pizza restaurant, and then we went back to their house for cake and games and stuff. It was a lot of fun having the extra kids there too because one of them had some pretty cool ideas for games and activities. We played sardines outside and hid in the shadows. If you don't know what sardines is, it's like hide and seek except only one person hides. Everyone splits up, and when you find the person hiding, instead of saying found you hide with them and stay quiet. We were all hiding in the shadows together, and it's pretty scary at night because one by one, all the friends disappear until you're the last one looking around. This time, the girl that went to hide chose the base of a tree trunk, which was completely obscured by shadows. Even though there were streetlights around the neighborhoods, the area was heavily treed, and if you walked by a tree when someone was hiding underneath it, you couldn't see anything at all. Well, I happened to walk past a tree where a few friends had found the hider and would never have known they were there, but I did hear giggling. I quietly ducked under the branches and joined them. There were four of us at this time, and we tried to remain quiet. It was then that I saw Kara's cousin, we'll call her Bridget. Well, she was walking right by the tree and looking everywhere for us. We were all sort of giggling and tried not to be heard. But she's pretty smart and somehow figured out we were there and came to join us. Soon almost all of us were hiding there except for two other girls who were still looking together because they were too scared to be split apart. I guess I couldn't blame them when it's dark out at night and everything seemed kind of spooky, which made it more fun though. The only weird thing about hiding there was Kara's cousin Bridget. She was just saying really weird things and making some of us feel uncomfortable. Things like, "Hey, I've got an idea for the last two people that can't find us. How about I kill them in their sleep tonight?" Things like that. Things that weren't really funny, but we sort of let out a nervous laugh, so no one was uncomfortable. She also had a hard time keeping her hands to herself. She would try and hold the person who was standing next to her's hand, but she would squeeze super hard. And when they said stop and let go, she would say, wait, 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 I want to hear the bones crack. Things like that. It's just really weird. So the last two girls are still looking everywhere for us. Well, they looked like they were ready to give up, and one of them shouted out, "Make a noise!" Well, we were debating calling out or wondering if we should give them another minute, but all of a sudden, Kara's cousin Bridget let out the most blood-curdling scream. I mean, like she was being murdered. Freaked us out, and the girl next to her said she was sure she was going to have a heart attack. We all left the tree to join the girls, and when Kara's cousin came out of the hiding spot, she had the creepiest smile on her face. When asked why she screamed like that, she just answered, "'Cause I like to scream." At this point, we'd been out for a while, so we all decided to go inside and watch horror movies. It was getting really late, and Kara's mom had us quiet down after the second movie. We were all playing truth or dare and being silly like that, but we were getting pretty tired, so turned the lights out and talked ourselves to sleep. Before we got too sleepy, though, Bridget said, "Oh yeah, that's right. I didn't do any truth or dare, but I have some truth to share." Kara said, "Wait, is this about that boy?" Bridget said, "No, that's old news. I think everyone here should know that I sleepwalk and do really weird things." Some of us were too tired to care, and I think we said things like, "Oh yeah, that's cool, don't worry about it." Then Bridget said something that really freaked us out. "Just make sure the knives are locked up, and we're good." I didn't know if she was serious or not, but it was just really creepy, and a few of the girls looked a little nervous, because her behavior the whole night was really bizarre. Anyways, we all finally fell asleep, and I actually slept pretty well. But I woke up halfway through the night because I felt movement really close to me. I stirred a little and opened my eyes, thinking that maybe one of the other girls had rolled over a little too far in her sleeping bag. Only when I opened my eyes, all I saw was a pair of bare feet right in front of me. Someone was standing right there. I look at those feet and then slowly look all the way up to see it was Kara's cousin Bridget. just staring down at me. No expression, no words, just a wide, vacant look. Really freaked me out, and I said, "What are you doing here?" She didn't answer. She just stared at me, but it seemed like she was looking right through me and not at me. I figured this must be one of the sleepwalking episodes she was talking about. And I noticed her hands were doing this fidgety thing. And then she started trying to talk, but it was all gibberish, staring at me the whole time. Another girl who woke up saw all this and woke up Kara, who got her mom. Kara's mom came down and was able to steer Bridget back to bed, although she set her up in the guest room instead, and one of the girls felt bad and said, "It's okay, she can still sleep in the room with us." But Kara's mom and Kara seemed to exchange a look and said, "No, it's better this way." The next morning, Kara's mom had made us all waffles, and we all enjoyed a nice breakfast together. But we noticed Kara's cousin Bridget slept really late. Like she came out all groggy when we'd all finished breakfast and were getting ready to be picked up. I did hear rumors sometime after this party that Bridget had to take some kind of medication that might have been responsible for her sleeping in so late, but I'm not totally sure. It was just really creepy. Not only her sleepwalking, but the things she had said. There were also rumors that Bridget had sleptwalked with knives before and would joke about killing people, but I really hope that's not true. Over the years, we had many more sleepovers, but none that were creepy like that night. When I was around 9 years old, I had a sleepover at my childhood best friend's house. It started out like any normal sleepover. We had pasta, and mind you, she was allergic to butter, so she just ate it plain. This is important to remember, I promise. I always had to wash my hands when I ate something there that she was allergic to for the sake of her safety. By the time bedtime came around, we went to sleep in her twin-size bed. This is where it all gets weird. I had woken up in the middle of the night for no apparent reason, maybe just being in a different place. But I noticed the hallway light was on and the door of my friend's room was cracked. My curiosity got the best of me, and I decided to check out who was still up at this late hour. I peered my head into the hallway and didn't see anyone. I shut the light off and decided to try and get some sleep. I figured someone forgot to shut the light off, so that's why I did it myself. I laid in bed for about 10 minutes when I heard footsteps coming up the stairs near the door. Now keep in mind, I'm only 9, and I was scared out of my mind. The hallway light turned on, and I noticed a figure standing in the crack of the doorway. The door slowly opened, and it was my friend's mom. Now this might seem like she was just checking in on us, but she turned her head like a dog in confusion. It was just really weird. I had my eyes closed almost all the way to the point where I knew she couldn't tell I was up. Just then, my friend all of a sudden rises up, says nothing, and runs to her mom standing at the door. My friend starts crying without saying anything at all. She points in my direction and begins crying even louder. Then her mother finally spoke in reference to me. "Did she touch butter, honey?" I was really confused, and I couldn't understand why her mother would ask such a dumb question when she had literally seen me wash my hands. I tried my best to pretend I was still asleep, but before my friend could respond to her mom's question, she pointed at me once again and said the words, "I know you're awake." I refused to open my eyes and show that I was awake. After what seemed like forever, they eventually left the room. But before my friend's mother left with her, she said in the creepiest voice, almost demonic, "I'll be back soon. You better be asleep." I was on the verge of tears. I closed the door and shut off the hallway light. A few minutes passed until I hear knocking on the walls. I had no idea what it was, but I was scared out of my mind. I covered myself in blankets for comfort and somehow managed to fall asleep. When I had woken up in the morning, my friend was sleeping peacefully next to me as if nothing had occurred that night. I woke her up and asked her what her problem was last night and why she was crying. She looked at me completely dumbfounded. Her mother and my friend had no recollection of the previous night, but I knew for a fact that what happened was real. This wasn't a nightmare. This was something entirely different. I never slept over again after that. Turns out that a woman who looked identical to my friend's mom died in that house from a house fire. Maybe I had seen that woman? I still have no idea what to make of this situation, but occurrences with paranormal began soon after I left that house. I have many more stories, but this one still confuses me, right to the age of 18. This happened to me and my friends over 10 years ago. It was the night of my 14th birthday party, which was a sleepover, and I still can't forget it. A little backstory. My parents at the time had a garage on our property that they had partially renovated. It had walls and a bathroom, but still had the garage doors that rolled up that wasn't completely sealed, and there weren't any curtains on the windows either. This is important for later. They were letting us use the garage when we had friends over to hang out in and stuff like that. Also important to note, our property wasn't totally isolated, but the nearest neighbor was nearly 2 kilometers away. We never really had any issues on our street, and it was the kind of place where you didn't really lock your doors all the time. Back then anyways. So comes the day for my birthday party. Up until this point, my parents had let my brother stay in the garage, but I hadn't been allowed to have friends sleep there overnight yet. Being the incredibly mature 14-year-old girls that we thought we were, I pleaded with my parents to let us have the sleepover in the garage rather than in the living room. My mom was skeptical, but my dad agreed that since it was my birthday, that it would be okay. After a long day filled with sugar and driving my parents crazy, we finally got to have the sleepover in the garage, with strict instructions that we were to go to bed and lights out by 11 p.m. Also, it was my responsibility to ensure that the garage roller door was locked from the inside. My parents had the key at the house. I dutifully locked the door, and we settled in for the night of more sugar and TV. At 11 p.m., we turned off the lights but couldn't sleep, so we decided, as teenagers do, to have a game of hide and seek with the lights off. We were about 3 rounds in, and my best friend was it. I was hiding half behind a cupboard that was beside the roller door. Everyone was giggling when the first person got caught. Then I heard giggling coming from behind me. At first I thought it must have been an echo, because there was no way someone had managed to find a hiding place behind me. What with me up against the wall door thing. Second person was caught, and there was more giggling coming from behind me. Now I was freaking out, but being the idiot I was, well, I didn't want to spoil the game, so I quietly moved to a different spot facing one of the windows. Now it was pretty dark outside, but the moon was bright, so you could see shadows, but that was about it. It was completely dark inside the garage. I was concentrating on not being found when I saw a shadow pass by the window and stop. Now I was sure there was someone outside, but I thought it might be my dad or my oldest brother about to catch us not in bed. So I froze. My best friend ran straight into me and started laughing. I quickly shushed her and said, "My dad's outside. We need to get back to bed." We quickly grabbed the other girls and quietly went back into our beds, thinking that we had all avoided getting into trouble when we didn't hear my dad saying anything. I turned over in my bed, but the shadow hadn't moved. Okay, by this time, I am majorly freaking out. The shadow moves away. Then there's a scratching on the garage door. This time, the other girls had noticed. We all started to quietly panic, and we all got into my bed together, hoping whatever it was would go away, and that we were just having some sort of sugar hallucination. The knocking on the door started, and more giggling. We freak out but don't scream. I just got a phone for my birthday, but it was over at the house with the rest of the presents. So with no way to quietly call my parents, we yelled at them to go away. Cue more giggling, and then banging on the windows. We could see the shadow, and it was fairly big, so it would have had to have been a grown man or a big teenager. We threw a mattress from one of the beds up against the window so they couldn't see us. He went to another window. We decided to hide in the bathroom with the door partially open so I could see out. The garage door then started to rattle and bang like he was forcing it open. He had never stopped giggling. I gave up at this point and gave out the loudest scream that I ever had in my life. The other girls started to scream too. The garage door stopped making noise. We creeped out and saw the lights on over at the house and my dad running to us at the same time as a car started up and took off from the side of the road. We didn't get time to see what the cart was before my dad was opening the door with the key. My dad opened the door to 5 hysterical girls. He took us over to the house to my mom, who calmed us down and finally got us all to sleep by letting us sleep together in their room with a king-size bed. Suffice to say, it was another 2 years before I could sleep in that garage again. Any sleepovers we had were at the house, and me and my friends were so freaked out that apparently we all slept with the lights on for the next few nights. Also, my parents locked all our doors and windows from that point on. They never found out who that was. Imail was 9 years old when me and my little brother, who was 5 at the time, were invited to a sleepover. My mother had just become acquainted with a man from church who spoke of his children wonderfully. I remember him saying he had them for the weekend due to custody and thought it would be fun for us all to get together. When we arrived, we asked about the children. Turns out they were arriving sometime soon. I guess they were still with their mother and somehow got delayed or something. The men invited us to the pool, so we spent part of the day chilling and playing there. It was pretty fun, but still no other kids of his had arrived. There were a lot of other kids around, but none were his. I wasn't sure if they'd be dropped off at the pool, or maybe the man knew they'd be late and took us there to fill in the time so we weren't bored waiting. When the sun went down, we decided to head back in and take a shower. I made sure to stick by my baby brother while the man was in the living room. I didn't trust the man for some reason. I just had a bit of a bad feeling, and I remember thinking about the children. I don't remember seeing any kid pictures or anything, not even on his phone's background, and it seemed like this man was stalling and making up excuses why no kids were around. I think by then it was clear there were no children coming at all. No children ever existed. I remember there was a Wii we spent most of the night playing, but no children were ever seen. Strange. And I started getting a really creepy vibe every time I thought about this man talking about his kids to my mom. Had he even been married, or did he make the whole thing up? And if so, what were his motivations for inviting us over? Maybe he was just a lonely man, but the whole thing seemed really sketchy. I don't really remember much after that, other than telling my mom we never saw any children. Of course, she was spooked and never left us alone at the church ever again. We went on with our lives, but it disturbs me when I think about it. Did he do this to other families? Invite them over knowing he had no children of his own, making up this story. We never saw that man ever again. This happened years ago, and now I'm 19. It's weird to relive the memories of the man with no children, inviting us to his house for a sleepover. So this was about 4 years ago. I went over to my friend's house for my first sleepover there ever. I was dreading it as I suffer from extreme separation anxiety, so I was already nervous. It started off normal. My friend and I were basically chatting all night. Before that, we had some games and some yummy snacks, and I was trying to forget my anxiety. So when it came to bedtime, I just figured we'd talk a lot until we fell asleep, and that might make things easier. Though at about 11:30, we heard the kitchen door open. We were sleeping in a room connected to the kitchen, so if you're standing in the kitchen, you could see us. So in walks my friend's dad. He stood there to see if we were still awake, and like any 12-year-olds, we pretended we were asleep. Once his dad was sure we were asleep, we saw him open the pantry door and step inside, leaving a small enough gap to look out and watch us. Both me and my friend saw this, and after about 15 minutes of dead silence, I whispered to my friend, asking what he was doing. He said he didn't know, and that he'd never done this before. After about 45 minutes of him staying in there, me and my friend started having doubts about what we saw. So I volunteered to go get myself a drink of water, which I would need to walk past the pantry to do. I got up and walked past the door and sneakily looked inside as I walked past. And sure enough, my friend's dad was still standing there. I went back and told my friend. We both just lied there in silence until about 10 minutes later, the pantry door opens and he walks out and goes to bed. Me and my friend were freaked out, but eventually fell asleep from tiredness. We both remember this, and I've slept there since, but he hasn't done the same thing since. In fact, the dad is always really nice. This leaves me to wonder, since it was so dark, if it actually was his dad at all, and maybe an intruder.